Howard Center already and have already gone through this process around eligibility. Oftentimes this can be a scary time in the lives of parents when you're trying to plan next steps after high school. And I always tell people there really is no good or bad time to start the process. However, it can be helpful to start it earlier on in high school, because the first thing that you want to be able to do is determine whether or not your son or daughter is going to be eligible for developmental services. So in order to determine if a child is going to be eligible for developmental services, that process starts at the designated agency. And so Howard Center is the designated agency in our county. And so you would just contact them to coordinate an intake. And by starting that intake process is how the determination around eligibility for ongoing services beyond high school begins. What can be really confusing is, depending on who you're talking to or who you're getting information from, it may sound like, well, I think I'm connected to Howard Center. I met with somebody a couple of years ago, and that can be complicated for families oftentimes, because the process of developmental services, we serve people from birth to death. So depending on people's life circumstances and where a family is at, where a child is at developmentally, and in need of services, the range of different types of supports that people receive really varies. It's very individualized. So oftentimes it is just making that initial contact so that you can schedule an intake to determine where is my child at, or where is my son or daughter at right now. Oftentimes, if you're already connected to Howard Center, it's finding out whether or not they are connected to developmental services. Because Howard Center is the designated agency in our county. It's a really large umbrella that serves children and adults in all different types of programs. So oftentimes you may be working with a school services clinician and know that your child's connected to a school services clinician who's a Howard Center clinician, but they may have not even realized that your son or daughter could potentially be eligible for developmental services. So by coming through that intake process, it starts the conversation around where things at, what type of ongoing support is going to be needed, and whether or not your child is going to be eligible for ongoing services either after school or while they're actually currently in school, because it really does vary. Eligibility criteria in the state of Vermont is, it's pretty black and white. And oftentimes the testing that you have to have for eligibility is pretty straightforward. However, that's not always done in high school. So if families are waiting until their child or the student is going to be graduating very quick, like in the next 6 months or 3 months, oftentimes we may not be able to get all of the information that's needed prior to graduation. And that's why I always tell family members, it is helpful to start that process earlier as opposed to later, so that you know and you can plan. So oftentimes we will have to schedule additional testing, and that type of testing that happens, if we need it for eligibility, is the responsibility of the designated agency. So families you're not having to coordinate that. You're not having to coordinate finding a psychologist who's going to do the correct type of testing that is needed for eligibility criteria. The other piece that's really important is Medicaid eligibility, and that is another piece that not everybody has applied for Medicaid or has needed Medicaid or has needed services while their son or daughter was still in school. And so that's a piece that oftentimes will take some time in order to make sure that that's in place if it's needed. So going through the intake process, we can help with some of those pieces. So the big things around the designated agency is reaching out so that you can determine whether or not someone is going to be eligible for ongoing services beyond high school through developmental services. And then if someone is not eligible for services, we're able to help provide referral for other additional supports that are in our community that you do not need to be eligible for developmental services in order to access. And you do not necessarily need to be Medicaid eligible for, so we can help with some of those additional resources that you may need. So that's that in a nutshell. The other thing we'll talk a little more about is Howard Center has many different programs that we're connected to. So within developmental services, we have several different residential programs, employment programs, community-based programs, and as we get at the end, when we're talking or asking questions, I'd be more than happy to provide some additional information on things like the Succeed program or Project Hire, our resource center. Avenue 7 is another residential program we have. So we have multiple different types of programs, and depending on what you're looking for information, I'd be more than happy to talk a little more about any of those programs that we have.
Great, because I'll be asking.
So I'm Eric Johnson. I'm a voc rehab counselor, and I'm assigned to CVU High School as well as 3 other high schools in Chittenden County. Voc rehab is both a federally and state-funded program, and our focus is employment strictly. However, we do provide some support services in other areas, but generally speaking, our focus is employment. Our eligibility criteria is quite broad. Essentially, any student, for the most part, that has an IEP or even a 504 plan for support in high school would be eligible, as long as their disability provides some, or proves to be some barrier to employment. That really is the eligibility criteria. So it's quite broad, as opposed to, say, developmental services, which is quite specific. Our scope of services, as I said, is more narrow than, say, Howard Center or some of the other agencies that you'll hear from tonight. Again, our focus is employment. Until recently, voc rehab was strictly an adult services agency. That changed actually in 2014 with something called the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act, which basically said we want everyone to start focusing more attention on in-school youth around employment. And so voc rehab was given a new mandate, which was to start partnering with schools and connecting with students much earlier to provide what are called pre-employment training services. So all of the basic stuff that you need to prepare for work, everything from interest exploration on up to helping find a job at graduation, help with career planning, that sort of thing. So we really try to customize our services to each kid, which can get a little tricky because there's a lot of kids in Chittenden County, but essentially you can refer your student as a family member, or sometimes, very often, the referrals come through the high school, and that's most common. And so again, our pre-employment training services is a new structure for voc rehab, so we're still kind of feeling out the logistics of some of that stuff, but our goal is to find ways to partner effectively with schools in providing employment services. Once a student does graduate from high school, they can maintain connection to voc rehab really throughout their lives. Our system works a little differently in that, at this point anyway, adult outcomes are measured by jobs acquired. So as an adult in voc rehab, you would have a plan that states what your vocational goal is and what services are provided through voc rehab to help you reach that goal, which can include funding for vocational training. It can include a little bit of funding for college. It can include funding for things like work experiences. It can include funding for things like tools, equipment, and other types of of training that are needed. So it really is, as much as possible, individualized to help a student or young adult or adult meet their employment goal. And so once a person finds the job stated in their goal, then our support just becomes short-term. There's a 90-day period whereby at the end of that period, if everything is looking good and the job is solid, we close the case, and that person can always come back around to us should their vocational goal change in the future. You know, more training, a different job, something along those lines. So I'll have information about how to connect with me, but you can also connect through the school as well.
I'm Kara Artis with Transition 2, and just to give you an idea, Transition 2 has been around since 1981. It was one of the very first transition programs that helped students graduating from high school find paid employment in the community. Back then, a sheltered workshop was an option, or they would just go home perhaps and not really have much to do. So we've been doing this for a while. Employment services in Chittenden County has been our specialty. We work very closely with Voc Rehab and some other funding mechanisms to provide specialized and individualized services based on whoever that person is. We do assessments and interest inventories, really getting to know the person. The job match is the biggest piece that we think in order for people to be successful. I think we all know how important it is for us to find a good match for ourselves, whether it's the environment, the actual work we're doing, you know, whatever the most rewarding pieces are. So we also collaborate very well with the other organizations in Chittenden County. If our services aren't the best fit, we'll certainly help you look at some of the other organizations as well. Some people receive services both from either Champlain Community Services in Transition 2 or Howard Center in Transition 2. So just know, I think you'll hear from all of us today that we're open to working with each other in order to best meet your son or daughter's needs. We also are happy to come and be part of the transition process, or just come and bring you some information. You can call us anytime. As Delana said, the transition process and planning starts to get kind of complicated and scary, and that's why we're all here, to hopefully make that a little bit easier, just give you some information so you can, you know, make some informed decisions. Just quickly, I won't go into all of our services, but Transition 2 being a private nonprofit organization, we're also a statewide intermediary organization, which I won't go into a lot right now because it could be a little confusing, but when Delana talks a little bit later, or someone from Champlain Community Services, if your son or daughter does qualify for a certain type of services or funding, the developmental services, there are 4 different options. Some are more flexible than others as far as how you arrange for services for your son or daughter when they graduate. So it could be totally agency managed, where Howard Center or Champlain Community Services provide all the services. Their employees are the people that provide support services. You can do a shared arrangement where they provide some of the services and maybe you want to hire someone to support your son or daughter in the community while you're working, some of those things. The 2 options that we offer or facilitate is self-management and family management, which means that you actually do all of that yourself. you kind of, it's kind of like running a business. You hire your own employees, you supervise them, you direct them, you tell them the hours that your son or daughter needs support, rather than it being driven by someone saying, well, I'm available between 10 and 2. You can say, well, but my son or daughter wants, to do these things through 7 o'clock at night or on the weekend. It just provides you more flexibility. I won't go into much more than that because it's just a lot to grasp all at once. At some point, if you should want to talk about what that could be like, we're always open to doing that. There's never any pressure. Again, they're just options that we provide so that you can do things a little more flexibly. And just the last piece is we do the same thing, but for the elderly population in Vermont. That's just kind of over here because we're talking about transition today. So, thank you.
I'm Karen. I'm from Champlain Community Services. We were started in 1967. It's Michelle Renee. Oh, we're not?
It might be a good though, it might be a segue.
It just seems.
Keep going.
And this is Brian from Think Positive.
It makes sense for you to go.
Thank you. She keeps me in line. This is Michelle. She keeps
I
me
like
in line.
structure.
Well, she does like structure. Anyways, we were started in '67 by a few families who saw a need in the community that was not being met for this population. So it was back in the day, and as time, we were started as a sheltered workshop, actually, and as time went by, we noticed it wasn't where we wanted our mission to be. So we started branching away from that model and, changed our services so that they were more individualized, so that it met each individual's needs. So I feel like we've always remained sort of cutting edge with services. We change as time changes, as people become more open and we see better ways to do things for each individual. But one thing that has really remained true about Champlain Community Services is our family atmosphere and the fact that we feel employment is critical for each individual's independence, self-esteem, meeting people in a more natural way, and things like that. So those are some of the things we focus on. One of our newest programs is a school to work program, so helping students find employment before they graduate. Michelle's our supported employment director, so I'm going to let her talk a little bit about that.
So one thing I want to just briefly touch on is that we're a SSA, we're a specialized service agency. So we're slightly different than what Delano was mentioning with Howard. Howard is the DA agency. So that is the agency that you're going to go to first for the intake process to see if your adult son or daughter is eligible. At that point, you then have a choice to stay with Howard for great services or come to us at Champlain Community Services for services or T2. I always call you T2 because I just think it's fun. T2! But one thing I do really want to put out to you guys are going to be so full of information. Every one of my colleagues here sitting around with you are a wealth of information. Please utilize them. We will all be here to support you guys through this process. As Cara was saying, is that every individual has their own place that they feel the best at. And that's what you got to figure out for your adult son and daughter as they move into their adult life, is really what place, Howard, T2, or Champlain Community Service, where is your adult son or daughter at their best? And that's, I think, the most important thing. As Karen was mentioning, I am the director of our Way to Work program, which is our self-employment program. So what did I say?
Self-employment, but we do offer
we do?
self-employment
Yeah.
opportunities.
It's Monday at 5 o'clock. So we are a very small agency. We support 76 individuals for their full person support. We have about 53 in our supported employment program, so very, very small compared to other agencies within Vermont. Again, your adult son or daughter, that may be perfect for. So we really encourage you to go out and look at the different agencies and see really where the best match is. We have a very aggressive supported employment program. We believe with the state of Vermont that every person has the right to find employment and to fulfill that desire, and everybody is employable. It's about being creative in ways to help that person find their employment path. Self-employment is a big thing for us. 2007, we rolled out the initiative self-employment to help folks with disabilities find self-employment and make it viable. My whole saying to that is all self-employment individuals need support. So there's no difference in an agency supporting an individual with their own entrepreneur thoughts. Let me see, what else? School to Work is a program that we launched last September, and I call it a mini Way to Work. We've taken Way to Work, which is a proven best practice organization that has a 98% employment rate, and we put it into the school systems to really help transition students find what their next career will be, or what their career will be. So as what Cara was saying, we are more than happy to come to IEP meetings, transition meetings, be on the team, and we can do that through the School to Work program as well, regardless of what organization you choose to receive your services at after graduation. So Karen and I will be here after this meeting if you guys want to pick our brains a little bit. So. And here is a fabulous colleague. That's one thing I just want to mention on too, is that we have partnered with Think College through the Way to Work program to support individuals with post-secondary, and working directly with Brian Dave on that. So here is Brian Dave from Think College.
And Emily Martin. So we're with the University of Vermont Center on Disability and Community Inclusion. And that's a University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disability. So every state has a designated USAID program, and we're the one for Vermont. So our center, serves people with disabilities and their families through their lifespan as well, through research and grant writing and dissemination and a number of different things. And one of the grants that we got in 2010 was the Think College grant. It was a U.S. Department of Education grant to develop a college program for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities who wouldn't typically attend college at UVM. So we designed this program as a 2-year certificate program. So they take generally one course a semester, including 1 or 2 vocational internships. So over the 2-year period, they get a certificate of college studies through continuing ed. It has 4 components. So the first is academics. So our students take typical UVM classes with support through undergrad students as UVM mentors. We go through a student-centered planning process and look at their interests and a career track. We really want to sort of get a career track going for them. And then the coursework is selected, kind of help them with that career path. So we look at the syllabus, meet with the instructor, make sure it's something that they're going to have some success with. They can take it for grade, or they can take it for audit. Our students have had really tremendous success with taking classes at UVM. Second part of it is social and recreational. We really want them to have a full university experience. They can get involved with different clubs at UVM, take advantage of the fitness center and pool and things that are available there.
That's not
generally,
fair.
Pardon me?
You can't offer that.
Yeah. It is a fun program. They enjoy
I'm
that.
sorry.
Try to balance the work and the fun. And then, yeah.
Campus life experience, that's important.
It is, yeah. And there's just a lot going on at UVM, so any given day there's any number of different things going on. The third part is we work on independent living skills, even though we do not have a residential program. Just through their day-to-day work, whether it's working on budgeting, public transportation, communication skills, organization, work on that, based on what the student needs. And then the fourth component is career skills. So, we really want them to establish a career path. They do at least 1 or sometimes 2 vocational internships. It'll be a semester-long internship, that's going to match their career goals. It's supervised, by me at the university, but then also their on-site supervisor. We treat it as a regular class, it is for credit. They have a textbook and homework and things that they have to do along with the internship. And then as they finish the program, we collaborate with our partners here in Transition, hopefully get them employed, if not through I think college program, then partnering with the agencies and helping them to find a job. And I'll leave to Emily to talk about what I see as the real heart and soul of our program, the most important, and that is our UVM undergrad mentors. So we have right now 18 students that work in our program and provide support, and Emily's a former mentor, so you can tell more about that.
So I was a mentor for 2 years. I think the biggest part of being a mentor is just fostering that independence. Kind of the most inclusive thing to have peer mentors be on campus. So I think the most important thing is just being that in-class support. So making a detailed homework plan, understanding what's expected, helping the student talk to the professors. But then it's also that social stuff, like taking the bus downtown and experiencing culture in Burlington, budgeting, all of that good stuff. A lot of our students are part of clubs on campus, so just joining them, helping students with social interactions. So there's really no end point. The mentors are the glue of our program and make it so inclusive. It's life-changing for us. It's life-changing for the student. They wanna really be there, so it's wonderful.
What I really like about the Think College model is they are showing the power of diversity to the next leaders of our community. So to me, that is so, so powerful.
At a young age.
At a young age,
Could I just ask about cost? Is it the same tuition as a student would pay to attend UVM? And do parents apply for financial aid through FAFSA in the same way that they would apply for a child attending UVM?
Not yet. We're hoping to do that. We have to become a comprehensive transition program in order for them to be eligible for federal financial aid. And that's a process that we've attempted and we'll try again, but it's something the university has to do. So we don't quite have that yet. Students pay the regular tuition that goes to the university. But they've been able to get support for tuition through VSAC, non-degree grant, Vermont Student Assistance Corporation, non-degree grant. And then Voc Rehab's been very generous in helping provide tuition support of $600 a semester for students. So usually between the VSAC non-degree grant and Voc Rehab, it covers the tuition of one course, which is they usually take the one a semester. But in addition to the tuition, we're no longer funded by the grant, so we're a fee-based program. So our fees are $8,000 a semester, and that can be covered through Medicaid. We also have some high school contracts, so students, during their final 2 years at UVM's Think College program rather than at the high school for private pay. Sure.
One thing that with the fees too is don't let that scare you from looking at this opportunity because it's a fabulous opportunity. CCS was also just awarded a GAP grant to help folks going into post-secondary attend that because the fees are there, right? So when an individual is interested in utilizing services at CCS, we will work with Think College and being creative on how can we get those funds to help support the individual to experience the Think College experience. So that could be Medicaid waiver, that could be utilizing GAP funds, it could be looking at one-time funds, private foundations, it's creativity. I think everything we do in our world has to be creative nowadays. So that's no different when an individual would like to go to Think College. So there's definitely options that could be to be navigated.
Great, thanks.
I'm Janice from Vermont Family Network, and I'm here with my colleagues Connie and Lori, also works at Vermont Family Network. So I'd like to see again, show of hands, how many students are here? 1, 2, 2. Are you going to see 3 students? No? Parents? You have other family members? Okay, 1, 2. Okay. So next question is, how many people have heard about Vermont Family Network? Oh, everybody. Okay. Well, that's good. So the important things to know about us is, for the most part, you don't have to qualify for anything. You don't don't have to be eligible, and everything we do is free, except our annual conference. If you don't get a scholarship, there is a fee for that. We mostly work with families, and we go to that place or do this work because we ourselves are families, and we have kids with chronic health conditions, special needs, disabilities. We might all use different words. And when a parent calls us, our role is to listen without judgment, to try to seek out and have them identify what their needs are, and then we brainstorm together. So we like to think of ourselves as almost like little bumblebees pollinating, because parents call us with questions, but they also call us with, here's all the great ideas we found. We've discovered in college, or we've discovered Champlain Services or Transition to, or this program at the Howard Center, and we share ideas. There's lots of parents who call us, their kids aren't eligible for any of the programs that you've just heard about. And they call us and say, hey, I got a 16-year-old that I cannot get engaged with high school. I'm afraid they're not going to graduate. They have an IEP. I'm not sure the transition plan is very complete or robust. Can you help me take a look at it and help me navigate that and figure that out? We're also about providing a lot of information to families. So I brought a variety of things and just will make it available if anybody wants any of these. You should always just feel free to call us, or you could, set up a meeting with us and visit us in person. But one of the, we have tons and tons of different fact sheets, but the one I brought today is called Transition to Adulthood. We have a new online Transition to Adulthood toolkit. The web address is on this little paper inside of here, and this was developed in collaboration with Voc Rehab. So it has sections on everything you can think about, including a timeline. What should you be thinking about when your kid's in the 6th grade, the 7th grade, the 8th grade? We recognize that families and children are all very unique and different, and so we like to offer lots of different options. I brought a whole stack of stuff on a topic that's near and dear to the heart of transition. I have 3 young people in my life. If they taught me no other lesson, it's their life, and they have hopes and dreams and goals. So I brought all sorts of materials about that very important topic of self-advocacy. How can you as a parent help your son or daughter develop their own self-advocacy skills? So there's lots and lots of handouts that you could share with your student. There's also some information on what does person-centered mean, because when it comes at the end of the day, it's their hopes and dreams. It took me like about till the 3rd kid till I figured it out. They don't really like my hopes and dreams. They're not here tonight, but I'd like to point out a great organization. If you've never heard of them, it's the Green Mountain Self-Advocates. Have anybody heard of the Green Mountain Self-Advocates? They have a great conference coming up, May 9th and 10th. It's tons of fun, so just a handout there. Dual enrollment, I don't know if anybody's taken advantage of that. But if not, and you're interested in learning more, it's a great opportunity in Vermont. And there are contact names at each of the colleges for students who have disabilities and may need accommodations as part of that dual enrollment experience. So I brought the dual enrollment brochure and the contacts. We had families, like 3 years ago, we had a workshop and we talked about the 10 things that families should know as their children are transitioning. And out of that came a holistic transition guide. So this was written by families, for families, and it mentions all the various programs. It's a big picture idea. How does your children get connected in the community? And there's transportation issues and friendships, so if that's of interest. And then for the students who might be considering college, I brought some things around college survival skills, how to get accommodations for taking the ACT. Just kind of skimming the surface here. So hopefully, if you have any questions, if you ever go out onto the web, it makes my mind just spin when you Google any topic and like 1,000 things come up. So if you call us, we work together, and then we send you the information in the way that's helpful to you, whether that's an email or mailing some things to a hard copy or just talking over the phone. So welcome anyone to give us a call.
And they have a great website.
So any materials that you might like, we're here. If you want to sign up, we have an e-newsletter that we send out 10 times a year. I could pass this around. We don't have really the time to send a lot of other things to people. We don't sell your email address. So if you're interested in getting our e-newsletter, you can I'll pass this around. You just put your name and your email address, and we'll add you to it.
Thank you, Janice. I'm ready to take some of those myself,
Oh, very
and I
good.
work there.
Okay, Deb Baker Moody, the instructor for Project Surge, and tonight Amelia came to present, and I just have to say she's 19 today, and she's presenting on her birthday. Later.
Yeah.
So I run the Project Search program, and it's located out at the Edge in Essex. Project Search was started back in 1993 by Erin Riley. She was a nurse, or is still a nurse, and she saw a need for tasks that needed to be done within the hospital that people could be trained for. So she started this program for young adults coming out of high school with disabilities, to be trained in a hospital setting and learn the skills that they need to do the jobs that they kept having high turnover in the hospital with these jobs. So a lot of the programs are in hospitals. Some of the programs are in hotels. It's an international program, so they're all over the place. We are the first health club, so I can offer, like UVM, I can offer swimming and basketball. So it's really exciting, and what I'm most excited about at the Edge is it's a great place for us to be. They see a lot of people that they know in the community. So I have 9 interns that come from 8:30 in the morning to 3:30, and we do an hour of class in the morning. 9:30 they're out in internships. Then we, at the end of the day, meet at 2:30 for another hour of class. So during that time, we're working on transition skills and things that they need to be successful in their internships. We have 8 internships at the Edge. I'm going to let Amelia talk about her internships in a minute. But childcare, we have 2 in childcare, 1 in a drop-in childcare setting, marketing, front desk, maintenance, aquatics, fixing pool. So the process in the fall, it's a 1-year program, so they have completed all of their high school requirements. They come into the program and get acclimated to the Edge, and then they start interviewing for the internships that they're interested in. So the managers at the Edge interview and help select interns for the different sites, and they'll do 3 10-week rotations. And it's just, I can't say enough. It's been so exciting to see the growth from August to now. And the program's really geared towards employment. It's what skills do you need to be employable? And where are you looking to get employed? So I won't say anything more because I want Amelia really to talk about her experience. Go ahead.
So it's been fun. My first internship was marketing, where I did a lot of data entry and writing the newsletter for the Project Search and for the Edge a little bit. And then I did like stamping and like labeling for like send out, and that was fun. And then my second internship was the front desk, where I answered the phone, I answered questions that people had. That one was fun too. Yeah, folding towels and doing laundry.
You got to see that was fun too, I
Yeah.
Door lock.
Yeah. And then now I'm doing, for my third internship, I'm doing, so in the morning I'm doing front desk, and then in the afternoon I'm doing marketing. So both of the internships that I've done already. And I kind of enjoy that.
And can you tell them what you're hoping to get in terms of a job?
Yeah, I'm like, well, I have 2 ideas, like a receptionist at a hill design place, and then, or like, a receptionist in like the hospital, medical center or something. So, kind of looking for that right now.
That's so cool. So thinking about those goals, we kept thinking about how to keep developing the skills and take them a step further. So that's the reason for the split. But the other reason for the split is Amelia and the other intern really have to communicate with each other and manage their time in terms of what tasks they get done. as you said, it's broken up. One has marketing in the morning, one has marketing in the afternoon. So again, it's kind of building more independence in their ability to get the job done.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to focus, and sometimes it's hard. We've talked about this a lot, like getting, feeling other members like feedback or something, and then like even on the phone, like they can be kind of rude, and I've had that a lot. But Dad told me, or we were talking, and we were to like it's their issue. They're probably having a hard morning, or but it's not like me, so I can't like worry too much about that.
Take it personally.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah, that's
Teach
right.
us all of that.
Good life lessons. The Edge is a very forgiving place for them to learn, so it's a great place to make some mistakes at work and really build on how to do things better.
How long a day do you work?
So 8, I think.
So we have class from 8:30 to 9:30, and then 9:30 to 2:30
Yeah.
is the internship hours. And the other great thing about that, it really simulates what it's like to work a full day, every day, 5 days a week. And some days we're pretty tired, right?
Yeah.
So, and the goal of Project Search is that they are hired at 20 hours at a minimum. So we're really going out to employers saying that they've spent a year in this program, they understand the employment language. We have 2 interns that have just recently been hired. And I was looking over the new employee information, and it was really exciting because we've spent a year covering how do you request time off, how do you communicate with coworkers. And I feel like they will be successful because they have a base of knowledge.
Did they get hired by the Edge?
We have one that possibly might get hired by the Edge. So it's exciting, and so now we're at the point where they're continuing in their internships, but also applying for different jobs. It's been great work.
Oh, sorry, I'm Tracy, I'm Amelia's mom, one of her moms. Jen, one thing I wanted to say about your question is sort of by design, they're not hired by the Edge because there'll be a new cadre of interns.
Because Project Search in the hospitals, it really is they hire the people in the
In
hospitals,
Florida,
but we
yeah.
couldn't do that here in Vermont.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah,
Right, and that's not the expectation of the host site.
yeah,
It
not
really
here,
is
yeah.
that they learn skills that are moving out to the community.
Congratulations.
Thank
Sounds
you.
like you're doing a
Yeah,
fantastic job.
great job. And I know you're here.
I know I'm
Amelia's on the flyer.
So that was, so is this your pilot, is this your first year?
Yes, okay,
Okay.
so this is the first year. There is a pilot in Rutland that is at the hospital in Rutland. And we went down to visit the Rutland site to see the different internships that they're doing, and they've been up to visit the Edge.
Do you project in time that may expand to other sites, or do you think it's just so much to
Possibly.
manage?
I
There's
think
gonna
right
be
now we
one
want
in
to.
Mad River, in White River Junction.
There's one at Dartmouth, Hitchcock, Hanover area, and that's been up and running for about 5 years. So right now, we're excited, the Edge wants us back, so that's huge. So we're really excited about that. And with the full year, they get a membership package. So we have interns that use it on the weekends, or they come in early. They talk to trainers and set up training programs. So I don't know, in the bigger picture, it would be great to be able to expand to different sites.
And what year in high school do you do this program?
The last year.
So like the equivalent
Yeah,
of
it has to
whatever
be
the
their
last
final
year is.
year, so they have completed all their high school requirements. They're at the Edge, they did not take the school bus to the Edge, tell them how to get to that.
You can either get a ride from your like parents or like get a ride from SSTA.
Yep. You can take the public transportation, but nobody at this point is doing that, but I think they're looking for next year. So it's really building the independence for everybody.
And I just want to say that I happen to work with the Edge. I'm the director of Kids and Fitness in South Burlington.
Oh.
And so I attend the manager Space Staff just Essex currently.
Yes.
And so I haven't had the opportunity to meet you or see it in action, but we talk about it at our managers meeting. There's 30 managers over the 3 sites, and I can't tell you how much they rave about all of you and what a great job you're doing and what a benefit to the Edge itself it's been, just in terms of the help, which is key and great, and their work ethic and their positive attitude has just been really awesome. And we have over 400 employees there, and the 9 that come from Project Search are sometimes by far better than any we can hire.